Hi everyone, it's Dr. Sara Ionescu. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about the concept of bouncing back. I'm not sure if everyone has heard of this, but I sort of wanted to briefly explain where I heard about it and my thoughts on it. So I think most commonly, bouncing back is in reference to postpartum women and the bounce back to their previous body, their previous weight, their previous exercise level, whatever it is. And I think for me, this mentality, what I have found, has been quite detrimental. And my first pregnancy, when I was postpartum, I was very fixated on, in quotation marks, bouncing back, because that's what society had trained me to do. And so I was focused on getting back to that pre-pregnancy weight, getting back to work in the way that I had worked before I delivered, getting back to my energy level and my sleep schedule and everything, all the things that go into, what was happening before and what was happening after. And then when I had my second child, I started doing some Peloton workouts, and I was introduced to Robin Arzon, who is one of my favorite Peloton coaches. And there was one class that I did that was a postpartum class, and she said, I really don't like the idea of bouncing back. Who wants to bounce back? Why would you want to go backwards? And so she said, I always replace that with leveling up, and I recommend you try that. And that one moment changed everything for me in terms of my postpartum journeys moving forward. And so that, I explain that because I want to give her credit, because that's where all of this came about for me. And I think that, this applies definitely to postpartum women, but I think the concept of bouncing back and replacing that with leveling up applies to many other areas. So things like recovering from a surgery, or recovering from an injury, or working on weight that has been gained over time. There are many different areas or examples that I can think of where the bounce back mentality may actually be holding you back, quite literally, because, like I said, it's focused on bouncing back. And I think that we can all agree, most people don't want to go backwards. You want to be moving forward. Even if you're struggling with the present and anticipating the future, you can't go backwards anyway, right? Time's going to go forward. You're going to go forward. And so all you can do is really focus on being present in the moment and improving a little bit day by day. And so that's why I choose to focus on leveling up and improving as opposed to bouncing back. So I just wanted to give three, and this isn't all of them, but I wanted to give the three ways that I was able to focus on leveling up when I was postpartum with my second, third, and fourth. And like I said before, I don't think this only applies to that situation. I think there's many applications of it in terms of recovering from different things and working on weight that might have been gained and all of that. And I think these concepts, can be really helpful for many people. So the first thing is comparing myself to myself. So, especially in the postpartum situation, there is a lot of comparison traps. You're comparing yourself to celebrities that seem to recover in 2 weeks, to maybe other mom friends that you have either from work or from school, or, whatever the situation is, where it seems like everyone has it all together and you're falling apart. And so even if that's not the case, that comparison can really hold you back. And so my first pregnancy, that was absolutely true for me. I spent a lot of time comparing myself to others, and it was a struggle and it was difficult. And in my second, third, and fourth postpartum periods, I focused on comparing myself to myself. What did I do today that makes me a tiny bit better than who I was yesterday? And that was it. That was my focus. And I find that over time, I became able to celebrate those other people instead of feeling down because I wasn't where they are. I was able to be a little bit more inspired by them because I was focusing on my own journey and where I needed to be. And, I think this is so important in so many arenas of life, but definitely with things like exercise, you have to do what you're doing. You have to look at what you did yesterday and what you're going to do today. And comparing yourself to, oh, look at this person's doing that and I can't do that, then you get into those thoughts where it becomes challenging. And so I think, like I said, just focusing on comparing yourself to only yourself. The second thing is focusing on positive thoughts. And so this definitely piggybacks on number one. But I think taking a minute to take stock of the thoughts and the stories that are in your head and actually verbalizing some of them out loud. For me, this was a huge step because those thoughts, they ruminate in there and you just fixate on them. And if they're negative, it ends up pervading your entire existence, quite honestly. And sometimes saying them out loud just makes you realize, whoa, like this is absolutely bananas. This is not accurate. What story am I telling myself? Because somehow when you say it out loud, it helps your brain realize the kooky story that it created for you. It can also help if you have somebody that you really trust, that you feel safe opening up to, to share it. And a lot of times you'll get the feedback of, absolutely not. Like, it's actually the exact opposite of what you were thinking. And so I think focusing on stopping that thought process in the moment and replacing it with the opposite, replacing it with positivity, replacing it with the true story. And sometimes it may be difficult because that true story or what you want doesn't necessarily exist in reality yet, but you can focus on it existing in reality, and that helps it become reality, if that makes sense. So thinking about things like, I am a great mom. It's not, I will be a great mom if, it's, I am a great mom, because you are. And so thinking in that manner of I am helps it be present tense and helps you be in the present moment, that person that you're trying to be. So really focusing on those positive thoughts and recognizing in the moment when it feels like you're getting into those negative stories or maybe even creating a false story and just stopping it and switching the thought process. And I will say this is not something that happens overnight. It does take some work and some patience, but the more you practice it, the better you will get. And, like I said, my first pregnancy was definitely that more negative false story type of situation. And I have practiced this through all of my kids. And I noticed that I have definitely improved. And I know you can too, because you just have to practice it. It's just like riding a bike or getting better at anything. You just have to practice. And the third thing that I started to do that helped me be able to level up and focus on leveling up is celebrating all the wins, all of them. So I think many first-time moms struggle with feeling like they're doing a good job because it's the first time you're doing it. You honestly have no idea what you're doing. And I think especially for physician moms, it's sort of like the expectation is that you should know what to do because you're a doctor. But being a mom is very different from being a doctor. And I think giving yourself grace in those moments is absolutely critical to a healthy postpartum journey. I think the same thing is true, again, with recovering from an injury, with recovering from surgery. These type of events can completely change your life. And so just recognizing what it is and that there are going to be wins that are different from the wins that you had before. And celebrating all of them is huge. So, as an example, for the postpartum situation, and this could be for postpartum mom, dad, anybody in that situation, there were days where it was like, okay, it's time for bed. I'm alive. The baby's alive. My husband is alive. This is a win. And it sounds a little bit dramatic, but I think anybody that's a parent and has lived through those newborn days, like some days are truly that, where you just feel grateful that you survived the day. And that's okay. Celebrate that as a win, because obviously it's a win. And then some days the wins are much bigger, or some days they might be just something that you may not have necessarily thought of as a win before. But when you take a breath and take stock and recognize it, it makes a huge difference for your mental capacity and for being able to move forward and, like I said, level up. You're recovering from a surgery and you're able to sit up and get out of bed by yourself. This is something that on a regular day, people do without even thinking about. But if you've ever had a major surgery, this is a huge step. And it should not be blown off as, oh, this is whatever. No, this is absolutely a huge step, and you should celebrate it and keep working and keep improving and keep taking stock of all the things you're doing to get better. Those thoughts of all the things you've done, all the things you've accomplished, power you forward through those challenging days. And they give you the confidence because you have made it through those days. And that is where I was able to focus on the leveling up and kind of toss away that bounce back mentality, because back doesn't matter. We're today, and how are we going to do better for tomorrow? So just to kind of review the 3 things that I did to focus on leveling up instead of bouncing back was to focus on those positive thoughts, to kind of take stock, get rid of the negative ones, focus on the positive ones. To focus on all the wins, no matter how small they feel, they are important, and taking stock of them is hugely critical. And then the one that I actually mentioned first was comparing myself to myself and being aware of that comparison trap. If you are someone that is wanting to exercise more regularly, is wanting accountability, is wanting support, is feeling inspired by these types of videos and the things that I'm talking about, head over to my website, which is drsaraionescu.com, and you can sign up for my free newsletter, and I'll have the link in the description box below. I would love for you to join me there. So what would it take for you to focus on leveling up and getting rid of that bounce back mentality? It's so important to move forward and level up. We're not going backwards. We are today. And what can we do to be better tomorrow? That presence in the moment and working on improvement will change your life. It will absolutely change your life. Hope you like it. Subscribe here for more. Bye, everyone.